Project Veritas has released their latest expose, a combination of undercover filming and a whistleblower from inside Google. They filmed several Google employees saying certain things, and then they also received documents from a whistleblower that corroborated those details. So it seems to be that this information is completely legitimate. Now, there's something interesting in this story in that I have been named personally. The whistleblower says that people like Dave Rubin, Tim Pool, as well as PragerU University have been targeted and have seen their recommendations go down. It's really, really interesting. So I started digging into various analytics for different channels. I do not believe that. So first I need to say, in this regard, I think we need to define what a recommended view is versus any other type of view. There's a bunch of different different definitions, and I will tell you this. Recommended views are not something within, it's not a word that has a definition within Google Analytics. Google Analytics has browse features, channel page, suggested videos. Suggested videos refers to some type of recommendation, but it's not the only type of recommendation. So there's actually a really interesting problem that I have with my name being brought into this whistleblower statement. I'm not saying I think he's wrong. Maybe it's true. They actually said they wanted to suppress my content, but my views are way, way up. And yes, my views are being recommended to new people. So it's not necessarily the same recommendation. I don't know what they're trying to say, but let's do this. Before I get into all of that and start breaking down what was said and looking at analytics, let's read some of this story because there's also some other really damning information in here. Project Veritas' headline reads, Insider blows whistle and exec reveals Google plan to prevent Trump situation in 2020 on hidden cam. Insider. Google is bent on never letting anybody like Donald Trump come to power again. Google head of responsible innovation says Elizabeth Warren misguided on breaking up Google. Let's stop here. I've never been a big fan of Donald Trump. In fact, quite the opposite. As I say all of the time, look, there are some things you can give him credit for, and I'm not crazy, so I will. The economy is doing great, fine. The Democrats are now on board with the border funding, for the most part, except for the far left Democrats. And for the most part, Trump's foreign policy, to me, has been bad, because it's always been bad with Bush and Obama. There was commando raids in Yemen, there was Saudi weapons deal, there's drone strikes, etc. The list goes on, Syrian missile strikes. Here's the thing, though. Trump pulled back on Iran, so I got to give him credit for that, because these are the things I care about the most. However, saying that even Elizabeth Warren is misguided on breaking up Google is alarm bells to me. No, Google is too powerful, 100%. And Elizabeth Warren is not wrong. Misguided in some sense in that maybe she doesn't know how to go about it properly. But I'll say this. She's not wrong. Something needs to be done. And I will stand next to Elizabeth Warren as she calls for action against the big tech giants, some antitrust or anti-monopoly measures. And Maxine Waters, who said, we got to stop Facebook's currency. Absolutely. I don't care what your politics are. Those are the Democrats I was looking for. Now, I think Elizabeth Warren's got a whole other list of problems, and I think Tulsi and Yang are better, but that's besides the point. The point here is we don't have to be partisan when we're talking about stopping massive tech giants with international allegiance from subverting our elections and democratic process. Quite literally, in this video, the woman talks about not letting something happen. Who are you to decide what should or shouldn't happen? That's not democracy. No, that's techno-fascism. These people are, like, I'm going to say it, and I don't use this lightly, but this woman, you're going to have to go and watch the video. It's a half an hour long, so go watch it if you haven't already. But this woman in the video talks about how they're going to decide what's fair. Trump supporters don't agree with them, but they don't care. They're going to do something about it anyway. How is that not fascistic? Sure, you can argue it's not fascism because fascism is X, Y, or Z, but let's look at the base word of fascism, where it comes from. It comes from, my understanding is a bundle of sticks. Together are very strong. That's what it was meant. You know, the people who used the word didn't think they were evil, but yes, they were authoritarian and believe that together they can impose their will on other people. So we can avoid the academic argument and just say it's technocratic authoritarianism. It's a technocratic autocracy, oligopoly. It's a dystopian nightmare. No, just because you got this job and hold some fringe identitarian religion in your mind doesn't mean you should have a right to subvert our elections. I don't like Donald Trump, but I am not going to, but I will stand against any authoritarian wingnut who thinks they have a right to tell people what they can or can't think. That's a terrifying future. But I digress. Let's move on. Google exec says, don't break us up. Smaller companies don't have the resources to prevent next Trump situation. Insider says PragerU and Dave Rubin content suppressed, targeted as right wing. He does mention my name in this as well. And I have found something really interesting. And I think I know what's going on, actually. So it's not that it's not true, but I've done, in terms of my channel, I'm doing really well. But I've done some digging, and I think I have some analytics, and I can tell you exactly what YouTube is doing, when they started doing it, and why they're doing it. Leaked documents highlight machine learning fairness and Google's practices to make search results fair and equitable. Documents appear to show editorial policies that determine how Google publishes news. Insider, Google violates letter of law and spirit of the law on Section 230. So I can't speak to all that. But we have this woman, Jen Janai, head of responsible innovation at Google. And we have several quotes from her. Now, you may remember that I did a video on Veritas' other video about Pinterest. And Google took it down for a privacy violation on a publicly available website that was going viral on Twitter. I wonder now if they'll do the same thing for me mentioning one of their employees. So, you've heard it from me. I've addressed the issue. I wonder what will happen if YouTube takes this video down for me commenting on a newsworthy story about how Google may have just been implicated in trying to subvert US elections. What a nightmare that is. They complain all day and night about Russia. I want to see the Democrats on board right now calling out Google for trying to interfere in our electoral process. Plain and simple. Facebook too. But we've got evidence now on Google, it would seem. So they basically show we're talking about Elizabeth Warren, which we've gone over. And how she I'll read this. She says, Project Veritas founder James O'Keefe, this is the third tech insider who has bravely stepped forward to expose the secrets of Silicon Valley. These new documents, supported by undercover video, raise questions of Google's neutrality and the role they see themselves fulfilling in the 2020 elections. Jen Janai is the head of responsible innovation for Google, a sector that monitors and evaluates the responsible implementation of artificial intelligence technologies. In the video, Janai says Google has been working diligently to prevent the results of the 2016 election from repeating in 2020. She said, we all got screwed over in 2016. Again, it wasn't just us. It was the people got screwed over. The news media got screwed over. Like, everybody got screwed over. So we're rapidly been like, what happened there and how do we prevent it from happening again? We're also training our algorithms. Like, if 2016 happened again, would the outcome be different? She talks about, I kid you not, the craziest thing. She talks about how Congress calls them in to testify, and they won't because they don't want to sit there getting attacked, and they won't change their minds anyway. That's terrifying. I made a video about Mark Zuckerberg refusing to appear for a subpoena in Canada, and now we have Google employee, presumably, okay, because I actually don't know who Jen Janai is, admittedly, but I actually believe Veritas did their due diligence on this. So, who I presume to be a Google employee, saying straight up, we're not going to listen to Congress. They're above you. They don't care about you, and they don't care about our politicians. And I said it before. Do you think Google cares what Congress thinks? And do you think anyone in Congress will do anything to stop them? Welcome to your future. If someone tries running for office under the policy position of breaking up Google and stripping their power away, guess who will disappear from search? They apparently don't like me, and I challenge them every day. I actually think this is technically not true, but I'll get into this. So they talk about fair and equitable state. They really are pushing their identitarian ideology. Now, this is the document I believe. So here's the thing. I don't know whether these are true or not. You can trust Veritas if you trust Veritas. That's fine. People choose who they trust. But this document to me was really interesting because I believe I can somewhat verify its authenticity. Not perfectly, but there's a reason I believe this is completely legitimate because I do have sources within Google and it corroborates some other information I've known about in the past. That leads me to believe that this is likely corroborated. More importantly, Veritas has got people on camera talking about this, so it's possible Veritas didn't do their due diligence. I think that would be unlikely, but I believe this to be legitimate. In this right here, it says, it's very hard to see, but it says editorial guidelines. There's a flow chart where they talk about their quality checks for publisher registration request. And it says Google has editorial guidelines. Is Google the New York Times? Technically, yes, they are. Think about what the New York Times was back in the day in all the newspapers. They were places where people could buy space to espouse their message, advertising, And there were places where the New York Times chose what was newsworthy. Now we have Google dominating about half of the advertising market and allowing people to, spread stories. But while Google might claim not to be a publisher, it appears they have editorial guidelines as to who can be accepted as a trustworthy source. There's some interesting things that have happened to me in the past with Google that I can't necessarily talk about that make me really curious as to what's happening behind the scenes. I've had some interesting interactions with Google that give me pause, but for the most part, they seem to be helping me out. That's all I can really say. The leaked documents appear to show that Google makes news decisions about what news they promote and distribute on their site. Comments made by Janai raise similar questions. In a conversation with Veritas journalist, Janai explains that conservative sources and credible sources don't always coincide according to Google's editorial practices. Here's one of the... Now we're going to move on. We're going to move on because there's a lot to go through with Veritas, and I recommend you actually watch their video, but check this out. The insider shed additional light on how YouTube demotes content from influencers like Dave Rubin and Tim Pool. Interesting. What YouTube did is they changed the results of the recommendation engine. And so what the recommendation engine it tries to do, is it tries to say, well, if you like A, then you're probably going to like B. So content that is similar to Dave Rubin or Tim Pool, instead of listing Dave Rubin or Tim Pool as people that you might like, what they're doing is that they're going to suggest different news outlets, for example, like CNN or MSNBC, or these left-leaning political outlets. I immediately got inundated with emails from people who were sending me this story telling me I'd been suppressed. And I want to stress something. Listen, when someone comes out and directly says my channel is being suppressed, trust me that I know about it. And seriously, I got hundreds of emails all saying the exact same thing. So I really appreciate the concern. But trust me when I say I am apprised of things targeting my channel. I know a lot more than I can actually talk about because I have sources and I protect them, and there's some information that can't be made public. I have seen internal Google documents which give me insight into what they're doing and why they're doing it. I can't publish the information because it would compromise sources. So it's a very difficult business to be in. But I have Google employees who I've known for years. I also have new employees who have reached out to me. They've provided me with documents. It's not too dissimilar to what Veritas has published here, but have asked me, like, this could help you with insight, but if you publish it, they will know it came from me. I cannot publish information that would compromise a source, so I can't, but I can tell you, I know certain things. I've seen internal polls on the politics at Google, and there's some things I can't necessarily talk about, but I know a decent amount. And I have spent time inside Google's offices, so I know a lot of people there. So I'll put it this way. Yes, I know about a lot of this. I do not believe the intention, as it's being stated from the source, is to try and censor me or Rubin or anybody and take us down. While there may be some censorship or otherwise, I do not believe that the ultimate goal is to eliminate my channel or cause us overt harm for the most part. But I'll say this. It does seem there's been a shift in the recommendation engine, but I don't think that is as nefarious as people believe it to be. The Google Insider talked about going to a meeting where in May, they specifically said they were going to make changes that would derank, me, Dave Rubin, or otherwise. I'm not going to publish all of my analytics because seriously, there's probably 50 charts I'd have to go through and to break down the data to explain everything to you. But it does appear that on my second channel, there was a change in recommendations following the beginning of May. Unfortunately, the beginning of May is also when I started changing a bit of my format and took 2 days off. So it's hard to track specifically what happened or why. But I can see that my recommendations to people who are not subscribed to my channel went down by about 15 to 20%. And the recommendations to people who are subscribed to my channel went up by 15 or 20%. I don't know what that means or why, but in the long run, it does not appear that my recommendations are down in any substantive way. In fact, on my main channel, recommendations appear to be way up. I will say one of the difficult things with tracking my personal data is that I recently appeared on the Joe Rogan podcast twice and Steven Crowder's show twice. And that makes it hard to know what is influencing my channel. Well, let's move on. Because Breitbart certainly covered the story. They have this story that says Google Insider Project Veritas, YouTube deliberately suppresses PragerU, Dave Rubin, and Tim Pool. I'm just highlighting this to show it has become a big enough issue where I'm going to directly address what they said, and I'm going to show you my social blade, which is publicly available information. In the past 30 days on my second channel, not this one, Timcast News, my subscribers are up 131.8%. My views are up 33.7%. These are not recommendations. I know a lot of people got mad when I conflated this with recommendations in the past, but recommendation isn't a used term by YouTube internally. Maybe it's used as like a slang term. When you go to YouTube Analytics, you have browse features, you have suggested videos, you have channel page, and others, external sources. Suggested videos may be the closest thing to what a recommendation is. After someone watches a video, does YouTube then say, hey, you might like this? Or on the right side, do they say, hey, you might like this? One thing I can't say is true. In my analytics, when I clicked suggested videos, the first thing I saw was a huge drop-off. I'm talking a 90+% drop-off for select videos in the beginning of May. When I first saw this, I said, whoa, maybe something did happen. But then I realized it was actually just tracking 5 specific videos. There are certain videos of mine on my main channel which were absolutely deranked. They're not suggested anymore. They don't pop up for whatever reason. They still get views, they do, but they're not suggested. I don't know what recommended means. We'll come back to this. However, I changed to track by date, meaning on what day, how many recommendations do I get? And there's no change at all. None. My recommendations are slowly going up. Now, naturally, there's a big spike when I went on the Joe Rogan podcast, which makes sense because there were a ton of videos about me. So let me go over this. Let me show you the data. First, this is my second channel. You can see that I've been averaging over the past month 2,000 subscribers per day. I can't say I feel like I'm being suppressed. An average of 841,000 views per day. Now, we can see certain days where the views are up. And we can see that at one point in, I believe this is March, I peaked with 27 million views in the month and it's gone down. People have tried to point to this to claim, aha, that's when they're throttling you. No, this is me coming off of the Joe Rogan podcast and 2 appearances. So yes, my views will naturally go down following a major promotional event where my name was plastered all over the place because of newsworthiness. So I expect my views to go down a little bit. But in fact, from when I went on the Joe Rogan podcast to today, here's the beginning of February, 18.75 million views. I went on the Joe Rogan podcast in that month, and now I'm still way above that right now with 25.24 million views. In fact, I'm at 25.241, 25 million views, let's call it that. So my views are still doing really well. As for the change in recommendations, let me just stress, in terms of a general term, what is a recommended view? There's browser features, which means when you go to youtube.com, what do you see? Okay, you see 15 videos that YouTube decides you might like. I would consider that to be a recommendation because most of my viewers are not subscribed to either of my channels. I'm getting 35 million views per month. I have a combined 1.2 million subscribers between 3 channels. I can guarantee that people watch my videos and are not subscribed. In fact, I can look at the data and see a substantial portion of my viewers are not subscribed to my channel. But every day I'm getting a lot. This is my second channel, by the way. We can see that in May of last year, I deleted some videos, about 1 million views worth. I think this was one video I turned private because it was a short clip and it didn't really make sense and I was going to change the channel. From then, my views have just kept going up and up and up. Granted, I've increased my workload. I've becoming more popular. The more work you do, success follows to a certain extent. So this spike right here in subscribers, Joe Rogan. So I gained like almost 100,000 subs in 1 month. This spike shows you why views spiked. But views were stable. Subscribers went down to normal levels, but views were stable. This means more people who subscribed to my channel stayed and watched. Let's go to my main channel. I am currently up 84.9% and up 159% in subscribers. I'm sorry, the 84.9, that was viewership. I'm at 9.166 million views in the past 30 days, and I did take down a few really old videos that I thought might get me in trouble because I have no idea what YouTube wants at this point. And I figured they were nearly 2 years old, they had almost no views, and it was like 10 videos that were like vlog kind of things where I talked about certain issues, and I said, you know what? These should come down just in case. It's better to get rid of 2-year-old videos nobody watches. And so I probably would be at like 9.5 million if I didn't delete it. So it was like 300,000 views-ish. Let me show you something. People have tried to claim this is proof of suppression. They say, look, you got a bunch of views and it went down for a year, and that's going up, then it goes down again. Oh no, it went down again. Listen, this spike right here is Sweden. I went to Sweden. It was newsworthy. I was talked about all over the news. People were searching my name. Then I slowly started figuring out and refining what my channel was and went from more on-the-ground vloggy stuff to political commentary. Around here, we can see the growth of my political commentary versus on-the-ground vlogging. The vlogging wasn't always journalism. It was sometimes commentary with me walking around outside. I decided to stick to commentary and make a new channel if I'm going to do anything on the ground, which we're doing. This spike, once again, Joe Rogan, and then some. And we can see that my views peaked in February, once again, Joe Rogan. I can say to him, thanks, Joe, for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. Help my channel out. And as of right now, in the beginning of May, something happened. I don't know what. But this insider said in May they had a meeting and they decided to suppress videos like from Tim Pool. Except my views are way up. Look at this. Let me go down and show you. This says May 1st. I had 6.33 million views in the month of May. And I had 27,000 new subs in the month of May. We are now in nearing the end of June, and I'm at 9.1 million views. I'm up. My subscribers are more than double. Or about double May. So if they were suppressing me in May, sure. Now here's what some people have said to me. Tim, you're succeeding in spite of the censorship. I don't believe that's what's happening. So I'm gonna tell you exactly what I think is going on and why it's happening. Whether or not it's nefarious or whether or not is besides the point. The intent doesn't matter. I'll tell you why I think it's happening. And the mainstream media is at fault. There seriously is a YouTube war happening. Here's Prager University, who has seen a massive growth of subscribers and views. So sure, maybe YouTube isn't recommending them anymore. But PragerU has seen their subscribers dip this month. In May, they had 30,000. Well, they have 35,000 for June. We can see their views are actually up a little bit to 24.5 million in May, and their views are a little bit less this month, but still a boost over the last 30 days. So however that worked out. I guess because in April they were at 21. However that makes sense. Here's the thing. And we'll check out Dave too. Dave's views are up. His subs are way down. I can't speak necessarily to Dave, but his channel started going down in April and then went down for May. You've got to take a look at people's content as well. Like Dave's views are up because he's been, I think he's been segmenting his videos up into clips. I'm going to tell you what's happening. I took a look at my channel and I look at suggested videos as I mentioned earlier, and I saw that some videos were no longer being recommended. It's very simple. YouTube's recommendation algorithm didn't discriminate at all. And they felt, so I'll put it this way. The algorithm wasn't refined enough. And I think what YouTube is trying to do is say, if you're not into politics, we're not going to send you to politics. Plain and simple. The complaint was that people would watch one video and the algorithm didn't differentiate between what was news and commentary and what was like gaming or otherwise, perhaps because there's been an overlap in the culture war. Certain videos of mine no longer get recommended. Around May this happened. However, my overall recommendations are pretty much the same and slightly up. That would suggest, based on viewership, they're a little bit down. I'm not complaining because my browser features are skyrocketing, which means YouTube is sending my videos to people not... Let me try. This is difficult to explain. If you watch a video, you may get recommended my videos less. However, if you go to youtube.com, you are more likely to see my video, which means YouTube is sending my videos to people unprompted. I also want to stress, I have been given VIP access at VidCon for a bunch of parties. I have a partner manager with YouTube who helps with mistakes and problems. When my videos are wrongly demonetized, they help me out, and I've coordinated. Right now, there are some issues. One of my videos was taken down, presumably because Pinterest lawyers were upset. And I'm in a dispute over this. I can understand a dispute like this happening considering it's a lawyer making a request to YouTube. I think YouTube is wrong and we're going to argue it. This is a problem that shouldn't exist. YouTube should not be making editorial decisions. If we want to talk about what Google is doing as a whole, I believe the Veritas report to be true. I believe the whistleblower, and I believe, based on some of the documents I've seen, they coincide with other information I've received, and I believe this to be factually accurate. That's a problem. Google should not be meddling in our elections. They are. They are not the moral arbiters. They should not be imposing their ideology and their dogma on the rest of the world, and this is why monopolies are problems. And this is why I've always been pretty socially liberal and believe the government needs to come in and regulate to some capacity. But I want to make sure I stress, I understand that this guy is saying my videos are being targeted. I don't necessarily think what's happening is intended to be like, you're wrong thinkers, we're getting rid of you. I think it's more so, let's make sure news talk is in its own category. That's why my recommendations on the browse page are going up, but my recommendations following videos are going down. If you're already subscribed to me, you're more likely to see more videos. If you're not subscribed to me, you'll still see my videos, but they'll appear on the front homepage. Again, let me stress, I do not believe I'm being suppressed. Some people have said to me, you're just, YouTube's placating you, Tim. They're offering you these great things and these great tools and these VIP programs because they want you to feel happy as the ship burns down. Maybe. Sure. I don't think that's the case. So something happened in may have been the result of me or otherwise, that massively increased my viewership. If someone were to tell me that something happened in May and YouTube made a decision targeting me, I'd be like, I can only assume they flicked the switch to increase my viewership because my videos went from averaging like 120K in April to averaging 250 or more after May. So did YouTube suppress my content or boost it? Again, recommendations may be different. Let's not focus on one aspect. I think as a whole, YouTube isn't hurting me at all. And I will also stress the position I am in thanks to YouTube is giving rise to other outlets which will not fall into the same categories. Whether or not YouTube, whatever they're doing, if they think they're suppressing me or otherwise, doesn't matter because I have set up contingency plans. And I want to stress right now, if you made it half an hour through this video, you must really like me for some reason. But let me stress, my podcast across all podcast platforms is now consistently breaking 10,000 downloads per day. While that may not be great compared to some of the biggest podcasts and compared to the average of, I'm getting almost 1 million views per day on YouTube as a whole, between my two channels, like 1.2 million or like 1.1 to 1.2 million. My podcast breaking 10,000 per day means, where was I a year ago? A year ago, I was getting about 20,000 to 30,000 per day. So 10,000 isn't as good as I was a year ago, and I'm way better now. I'm in a way bigger position. But if my podcast is doing well, I'm not so concerned if YouTube wants to try and shut me down because I am setting up my business to survive in other ways. Listen, YouTube recommendations are not a right. They are a privilege. YouTube has no obligation to decide you should be shown to anyone. It does present a problem then if we have a tech monopoly that is giving favorable political coverage to certain groups. Google has destroyed the news market. They're dominating the ad market. And it does become nightmarish if Google's internal politics then start, they dictate we're going to push these things. A monopoly should not control thought in that way. But in the end, as long as YouTube is hosting my videos, I can't really complain. And I gotta admit, whatever you want to call a recommended view, YouTube does recommend my videos more today than they did a month ago, 2 months ago. Now, admittedly, metric-wise, around the Joe Rogan and Steven Crowder appearances, there's a huge bump in recommendations. I try to eliminate those as outliers and remove the spikes, which means my growth has been pretty stable. I don't believe I am being throttled. I believe some of my videos have been. I believe that YouTube is trying to stop what's viewed as the pipeline towards radicalization, meaning if you watch a gaming channel, you won't be recommended a news channel. But if you watch news channels, you'll still be recommended news channels. I don't know for sure. The whistleblower probably knows better than I am, better than I do, and perhaps I'm just succeeding in spite of all this. But let me just stress one more point. Steven Crowder, it's hard to track, but his subscribers are still up over the last 30 days. He deleted a bunch of videos, it appears, so I'm not trying to drag him for this, but it appears that his channel is fairly static in terms of views. It's up and down and up and down. It's been worse a few months ago. It was worse before that. It was worse a year ago. So Crowder is succeeding in spite of what they might be trying to do. Prager University is still succeeding in spite of what they're trying to do, and Dave Rubin as well. YouTube should not put their thumb on the scales, I agree, but we're all still succeeding. If YouTube deletes us tomorrow, I'm going to say this. It's your own fault. We know they're a monopoly. We know they have a political agenda. We know they're censorious. Take precautions now. We can keep fighting the good fight, but you better put your eggs in a different basket. And I want to make one more very, very important point before I sign off on probably one of the longest videos I've done in a long time. You, as a YouTuber, are not free from market forces. I also want to make sure I stress, your recommendations might be down because other channels have emerged that are better than yours. Let me put it that way. I've been producing more and more content. It's entirely possible. There are a finite amount of people who watch political commentary on YouTube, and if you are producing less than other people, the algorithm will favor those who work harder. If your content is not as good, the algorithm will favor other channels. Perhaps my commentary is better than yours. I'm not saying it is, I'm just saying, and I'm not targeting any channels in particular, because I wouldn't know how to quantify this data anyway. I'm just saying, your views may be down because my views are up. People can only watch so much content in the day, and if people prefer to watch someone else, guess what? Your channel won't do as well. While we know YouTube does these things, okay, so does Twitter and Facebook. If you get it in your mind that the only reason your channel is doing bad is because a big, tough tech giant is suppressing you, you will never change and try and improve your product. No matter what YouTube does, no matter what Facebook does or Twitter does, it will always be your fault. That doesn't mean we don't fight back. That doesn't mean we don't challenge censorship. It means prepare and take personal responsibility if you get banned. YouTube, right now, has been great to me. My videos are doing better than ever. My views are way up. My subscribers are way up. Everything's going great. Revenue is great. I have a safety net thanks to all of you who support my channel, and it's being used for two things, Subverse, and also I'm going to be launching a news rating agency. It's happening. Where I'm getting to the point where we're reviewing people, we're setting up the office. It will happen. So whether or not this all goes away is fine. I'm planning outside of YouTube, as you should as well. Plain and simple. I've addressed it. I don't know. Maybe I'm being suppressed, but because I went on Rogan and Crowder, I've got a massive, boost in subscribers, but I'm actually being suppressed. I don't know, maybe. But I'll tell you what. I come from the street. I grew up in the gutter. And if at the end of the day, at the end of the month, end of the year, YouTube deleted all of my channels and I no longer existed, I wouldn't cry about it. It sucks that YouTube does this. I don't like tech giants manipulating public discourse and meddling in our elections and pushing a political agenda, which we now have evidence they're doing, which we kind of knew they were doing for a while. But I will always end by saying I came from a world where I had nothing. I'm not going to cry over going back to the way things used to be. Sure, it sucks when you spill your milk, but go find new milk. I'm not somebody who's going to shed a tear. I am a moderate individual. I believe these companies need to be regulated because they're growing out of control. But I also believe in personal responsibility. If at the end of the day, the system they control excises me, I will have no problem getting in my van, driving to some lake in the middle of nowhere and going fishing and building a little mud hut and just chilling out. I really would not care. It is what it is. There's things that are right and there's things that are wrong. And I don't like Google, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, etc. deciding they're going to tell us what morals are. That's authoritarianism. And it's going to lead to a very, very dark, nightmarish future. We have to do something about it. But in the end, I want to stress this. Don't cry if you don't win the fight. Just keep fighting, keep your head about you, and make sure you can protect your resources so the fight can continue. If tomorrow my YouTube channels were gone, I still have the podcast generating 10,000 downloads per day. It's the Tim Pool Daily Show for those that are curious. Go watch it. I still have that. And I will promote and do my thing there. More importantly, I'm on Minds. minds.com/Timcast. I'll put my videos up there if I have to. I'm also getting around 10 to 20,000 views per day on that platform. I'm not blind to the problems of a tech monopoly. I talk about it all day, every day. So I'll say this last thing to Prager, to Dave, to Crowder, to Roaming Millennial, to The Quartering. Those are basically the channels I watch. But what Prager and them, they're the ones mentioned specifically. But if you're a political YouTuber, be on BitChute. StickSex and Hammer too. I don't want to leave you out. There's other channels I could name. But I'm also on BitChute as well, and I have like 20,000 subs on both channels. So I'm preparing for YouTube saying, we're the big dog and you're out of the program. I'm not worried about it. I would have no problem sitting back with a piece of straw in my mouth, a straw hat and overalls, going fishing, starting my own fires, and just living. In fact, it would be so nice to get away from the insanity, the fighting, the nonsense, and make a YouTube channel where I just go fishing every day and say, hey, today we're fishing over here in this lake by this mountain. Wouldn't that be nice just to get away from it all? Give me an excuse. Seriously, give me an excuse. But until then, everything is going pretty well for most people. People are successful. If you're not successful enough on YouTube, find other ways to be successful. Think about a world without YouTube and where we used to be. I understand YouTube's powerful. I understand they're dominating the commons, but there's still opportunity elsewhere, and it will only come if you make it happen. So here's what you should do. Final thought. Go to minds.com/Timcast, minds.com/Timcast. Follow me there and sign up. The only way we make the world a better place is if we decide to do it and we stop taking drugs. YouTube is the drug. It is the easiest, most successful platform, easiest path to success for any platform. But we can see that they're not happy with what we're doing. Fine. Then we need to make sure we take it other places. Plain and simple. So that's why I'm on multiple platforms. I don't know what else to say, but thanks for hanging out. I've got more videos coming up at 6 p.m. youtube.com/TimCastNews. I will see you there.